teens. But
yeah. Well, also, it's kind of like the Americanized version of anything British is every other word is like bloody.
Mm-hmm. But they have like the same actor plays the Kaiser, King George, and Tsar Nikolai.
Okay.
Rhys Ifans is Rasputin. He's really fun.
Whoa.
Rasputin's probably the best part of the movie.
He's such a notorious figure, too.
Did you ever see the movie where it was Tom Baker from Doctor Who as Rasputin?
No, but he would make a good one.
Oh, he was great.
Tom Baker's creepy AF.
Yep.
That's kind of the one thing I liked I like the rude doctors who just didn't give a flying F.
Yep.
But they were nice enough to save everybody.
Yep. That's why I like the third Doctor so much.
I don't remember who that is.
The one that looks like a granny.
Oh.
He had the car, Bessie.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, boy, he always ran around with Brigadier.
Yep.
That was kind of the old joke there. Okay. It's kind of funny how the Doctor is an immortal being, more or less, for the sake of the show he is. And yet you would think that you would work with the same doctor your entire lifespan. And here you have in a 30, 40 year period, you'll see, whoa, there's like 10 different doctors coming through here. What's going on, bud? But that's what happens when you live a non-linear existence, I suppose. You just drop in whenever you are, whatever you are.
All right. Hello and welcome to the 19th episode of the 5th season of Next Generation's First Generation, where every year on the 30th anniversary of the episode's release, we do a commentary for that particular episode of Next Generation. This week, we are covering Season 5, Episode 19's The First Duty. It's a trial at Starfleet Academy with Wesley Crusher and not quite Tom Paris.
The framework Tom, the progeny, I guess you could say.
Nicholas Locarno.
Locarno. That sounds like something you do at the fair. I'm gonna go lick the Carno.
And you can tell if you're a fan of the show that that's my co-host, Mr. Sascha Shouties, who is not here with me physically. He is at Next Gen, First Gen South, and I am in, let's call it the motherland, because I'm in my mother's apartment. The studio, the roof at Cantley Studios has unfortunately collapsed, and we are waiting for it to be repaired. So here we are through the magic of Zoom, watching Star Trek: The Next Generation, and with you, who we're always happy to have here on the other end of whatever device you can hear us from. And so with that, it is time for you to load up. If you're going to watch with us, we're on Netflix right now. Get your Netflix or your DVD or whatever you're watching set up, and we'll give you the countdown of 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and we'll start this thing.
Okay.
In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And so the Enterprise is returning to Earth so that Picard can give the commencement address to the graduating class at Starfleet Academy, where Wesley is. And he is excited to see Wesley again. And here's an extra that must have won a contest because he gets to be the first guy on screen.
Mama, be proud.
Pretty much.
Tune in Thursday night, March 30th. I'll be on stage. Don't miss it. Is this Wesley's graduating year?
No.
Okay.
He has only been at Starfleet Academy for a year.
Okay.
But he's part of this flight team that's going to turn out that he's with. He's like the youngest member of it. Everybody else is an upperclassman. So Picard and Riker are talking about the different teachers that they had at the academy. Riker had a Vulcan. Picard, I don't remember what his deal was with the person that he had, but an incoming message is coming from the academy, and the current commandant is somebody that Picard is familiar with, a formidable woman.
I can see the commandant from Police Academy with the riding crop and the funny hat. Mr. Picard!
Admiral Brand, what can I do for you?
And I was thinking about this, that it's like, she wants to deliver this news about Wesley to Picard, and it's like, but Beverly's on the Enterprise, and it's like, she might not know for a fact that Beverly's on the Enterprise. She probably she knows the Enterprise is coming, that Picard is the captain. Like, he doesn't need to give her like who's currently on the ship and who's not on the ship. Like, they would have eventually reached out to Wesley's mom, but for right now, it's more of a, hey, my priority was supposed to be you coming here for this commencement address. Now everything's going to be kind of crazy. But one of the people involved in this accident that this kid got killed during. And they also set this up to make it look like it's Wesley that got hurt. And he did get hurt a little bit. Like, if this were the time.
It's a teaser. They make it look like, oh, maybe he got beamed out into the hospital bed or something, but he's okay. Mm-hmm. The reason why Admiral Brand, they're on Brand, talked to Picard, it's just simply following chain of command. So if something bad happens, you would contact someone who's kind of in charge of the ship, or Riker, who's in charge of personnel, and say, okay, we have bad news coming down to one of your crewmates. And before we talk to them remotely, your job is to kind of go in and kind of set the groundwork. Hey, something happened. Here's the information. That's kind of like you're at work and you find out someone at home died. It's, I don't know, with cell phones, you might get a call right away, but if someone knows where you're working, they may call the company and then go through the chain of command to find you and tell you.
They wouldn't tell the CEO. Mm-hmm. They would tell the CO if Wesley had been dead. They would tell Picard, and if Picard tell Crusher. But so here's Picard delivering the news, and I love that he does this so formally. Like, let's go to your office. Let's have the desk between the two of us. It's like the two of them have, a fairly casual relationship most of the time. But this is, being done in a very professional capacity.
She's asking very doctor-like questions. Did they do the full regeneration series? Did they do this? Did they do that? So,
do they know what my son's allergic to? Which I love.
Here we go. There is a collision. Now, Wesley never struck me as a pilot. I'm sorry. He just doesn't have that cavalier attitude that pilots usually have.
Well, you can tie it back to how great he thought Okana was in the Outrageous Okana episode. So you could see this flight team would definitely want to have somebody that had been on the Enterprise, and he's piloted like shuttles and stuff before.
Yeah, he's even crashed a couple.
Yeah.
Oh wait, did he crash on the farewell episode that he did last season when they crashed on the desert planet? Was Wesley at the controls? No, I think the minor pilot was at the controls. Yeah. Okay.
So I really like this actor that plays the dead kid's dad. You could totally believe that he's a grieving father. And this is kind of, them, the commandant telling all of the parents, what they're going to do about what happened. I am assuming Locarno's parents are not there, that these are the father of one of the human girl on the team, the father and mother of the human girl that was on the team.
Yeah.
And obviously the Bajoran parents are not there.
The grieving father there looks really familiar. Like,
he's a famous that guy.
Oh, he is?
Yeah.
Okay.
I want to say that actor's name is James Reburn or Reburn, and he passed away a couple of years ago, but he was kind of notorious for playing, stuffed shirt father-in-laws in movies and stuff.
Okay.
He's got that face where it's like, oh, this guy's not going to be happy.
Did we catch the character name by any chance?
I do not recall.
Because we do see in the lineup of the victims or suspects, depends on how you want to look at it. We actually see the Bajoran come back too later in the series in Lower Decks. Yes, it's the same person.
I did not pick up on that. Huh.
It's a far-reaching. Oh, there's an interesting PT device.
Yep.
What? Okay, it's a resistant band. I get it. It's kind of strange how it's attached to his bicep.
But for some reason, the Academy dorm has a door with a doorknob on it.
Right?
Rather than slide the door.
Just in case power goes out. I'm getting some serious Red Squad vibes from this episode. I watched it not too long ago. I'm like, yeah, that is strange. Now that you say it, I don't think I've ever seen a standard door on this show in a high-tech environment anyway. Mm-hmm. I don't want to go through it again. I'm okay, but I don't want to talk about it. First clue, people.
They did a really good job of... I feel like a lot of shows would have worked a lot harder to make Locarno a complete bastard. And they really don't with him. Like, his behavior is completely believable. Like, this is what somebody would do that screwed up and doesn't want to get in trouble, but also doesn't want to look like he's trying to cover his own ass. He wants to make it appear that he's looking out for his team.
Yes.
That like the qualities that he is projecting are good leadership qualities that the people under him should follow.
Mm-hmm. Well, they really did a good job basing the Tom Paris character off of him. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was a very nice transition. So here he's still optimistic but guarded, and then when we see him in Voyager, he's cynical and burned out because he believed in the system and the system failed when he tried to cheat. So it's a very believable arc between what we see of him now, arcing into his failure and resurrection. And then we actually, if you had the patience to see this character all the way through to the end of Voyager, he kind of regains some of the same personality traits you see here, where he's invested in what's going on with the other people around him. He's got focus to a specific point.
But we don't have the added baggage of his father being an admiral in this.
Yeah. My petunias.
But here is a very important character who I believe appeared in 2 more episodes.
Yeah,
he's in Tapestry, and he's in an episode of Voyager.
Yeah, he's so this is Boothby. We love Boothby. Apparently, anybody who's anybody, this guy is kind of like your good luck omen. If you're friends with him, you're bound to be in Starfleet leadership.
Well, Boothby is the Guinan of Starfleet Academy.
Oh, there we go.
Except whereas Guinan is totally her own thing, Boothby appears to be to the cadets to be in a service role. Even though Guinan works as a bartender, I don't think of her as a person who is, in service. This guy kind of hides behind that he's there working in the garden, but he can also put any kid that he wants to work.
It's kind of like Garrick when you think about it. He may be a tailor, but he's doing other things.
Yep.
He even said he was a gardener on an embassy somewhere where he found the role, his cover more enjoyable than the actual work. So this is an inspirational character who seems to be invested in people's developments and what's going on. Actually, Ensign Kim from Voyager had a Boothby-like character. He was running a coffee shop, and he was one of these alien time beings that tried to move him around from dimension to dimension. I don't know if you remember that one or not.
No, I was trying to rewatch all of Voyager a minute ago, and I stopped. That's the problem with New Trek, is that there's a new Trek episode every week now, so it takes away from going back and being able to enjoy old Trek. Is my biggest complaint about it. I like New Trek, but I also like being able to revisit stuff like The Next Generation, and I hope that. I mean, there is a part of me that's like, once this podcast is done, I might never watch Star Trek: The Next Generation again.
Yeah, are you
It's
thinking
a possibility?
Are you thinking this is kind of putting it to bed for you?
It might be, because I'll watch these, 2-3 times to record about them. This was the last one we watched when I was up in Canada, and then I watched it and I watched it again this morning, and so this will be my third time watching it. And thankfully, it wasn't one that I'd watched very recently, so it wasn't like the last episode we recorded where I just knew that episode in and out and up and down, and I was kind of tired of it. Look at how good this guy is at what he does. Like his first thing is that he like immediately like dominates the first one of the cadets that he's talking to, and then with the Bajoran, he looks nervous. Like I get it, you and I are both nervous, but like he's able to switch from I'm totally in control to you and I are in the same boat. We need to work together, and we both have the same concerns.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's good leadership, because his objective are the team's objectives. It's not saying, hey, go over there. It's come with me.
Yep.
And come with me is always the preferred leadership style right now. So to answer the question, Boothby is in all of 3 episodes in Star Trek total. That's over all the shows, only 3. So he's kind of like the no soup for you guy. You think he's in every single Frasier episode, but he's Seinfeld episode, but he's only in 1, and it's just for a couple of minutes. So he's in the Flesh. That's a boxing episode with Chakotay, and The Fight, which is the Voyager episode, and then of course this one, The First Duty. So here we are at the trial.
He's not in Tapestry?
He is not in Tapestry.
Huh. I remembered. It's so funny. I remembered him being in Tapestry. So he's in 2 Voyager episodes and 1 Next Generation episode.
He might have been mentioned. So like he does get mentioned quite a bit.
Yeah.
But not seen. And
Okay.
We're just focusing on seen. We always have to have our token Vulcan on the hearing board. Look at that. I can't think of very many tribunals where they don't have a Vulcan on board.
Well, that's the whole thing, is that you want to believe that a Vulcan is completely neutral. Like emotion doesn't come into it for him, and emotion really comes into it for the commandant, because she lost, one of the students at her school.
Yes. I want to go back and did we ever see a picture of the deceased?
I don't believe so.
Oh, that's too bad.
I will give a shout out to The Greatest Generation that points out that for a school that thrives on diversity, this is a very, very white episode about the Academy.
Well, back in the 90s, they were still trying to figure out what diversity meant for television. And first it was women in leadership roles, then it was your token black guy, and then groups of different ethnic races, but not in the lead. And now we're finally getting there where there's a good representation, especially in the new Trek.
Oh yes.
Where the only straight white guy we see turns out to be the freaking villain. So there we go. I'm happy with where the show went for diversity, but I want to dial it back for just a second. Our guest grieving father The character is named Ed Lauter, by the way.
That's right. Okay.
Yes.
Yes, I thought it was James Redburn, but Ed Lauter is still alive, I think.
No, October 16th, 2013. He died at 74.
Oh, that's a shame.
This is a young looking guy, even right there. I
Yeah.
mean, so we're still in this terrible tribunal where they're cross-referencing the flight pattern with all three cadets. Honestly, in a true investigation like this, you would separate the three and get their depositions individually so they can't be coached. And then you bring the three together and say, well, okay, this is what Wesley said. Okay, this is what Cito said. Okay, this is what fake Tom Paris said. And then start hammering away at the discrepancies.
Yeah, you might, but also, I mean, obviously there aren't any. It doesn't appear that there are any other cadets here for this trial. This is for the parents. This might also have supposed to have been, about teamwork too. That they did this way because they wanted to gauge how this group worked together as a team.
So I've got a question for you here. In the story, the narrative that they're telling is that they are doing some stunt flying in a shuttle, and they want to perform a maneuver that everyone can see, and it'll look great. It's part of the graduation celebration. And the difference, the story starts to diverge between the type of formation that they're flying. And what they want to try to do here is, what they really try to do is fly a super dangerous formation where they ignite their plasma. But they do this in an area where it can't be seen on sensors by anybody. And that's where all the confusion is coming from. So my question is, why do the dangerous flight pattern if nobody can see it in the first place?
They said at the beginning they would have had this worked. Everybody would have been watching from Earth.
Oh, okay.
Just at the time during their practice, there was nobody watching, except that it does turn out, they get caught because there was a satellite that took a picture of them being in a different formation than the one that they said that they were in when the other cadet died.
Yes, that's right. Here we go. We've got Jordy and Data on the case. And you can already see the bias that's kind of sneaking in as we want to make sure that our boy makes it out okay. So whatever you can find, get that.
I wish that they had you need Jordy for the engineering and Data for the technical stuff, but because this episode is so much about like where emotions lie and like how the truth is handled, this would have been a great one for they never did this on the show, but they did it in the novels all the time. Worf and Troy investigations.
Oh man,
we have Troy, going off the emotions of the people, and Worf getting in there and just knocking heads.
Yeah.
And I would have loved to have seen Nicholas and Worf go up against each other.
Oh, I think Worf would kick his butt.
Yeah.
Worf gets too angry. Like I was thinking about Worf and as a leader, and his profession does not allow him to get angry in any situation. You don't want to have a person who's pushing the, fire phaser button to be steaming out of both ears, because then you can make biased mistakes.
But you also see him doing stuff like the Tai Chi, like leading the Tai Chi class.
True.
And stuff. So I think that Riker just brings that out of people.
Makes him pissed.
Yeah, Worf acts the way that he does because Riker would come down harder on him if he didn't.
Okay, I buy that.
That's why the Worf on DS9 is a little bit different of a Worf from the Worf on Next Generation.
Well, then let's look at Worf's bosses. You have Commander Riker and you have Captain Sisko, or Commander Sisko at the time. So when you ask yourself between those two leaders, who's Worf's boss, which one is more nurturing? I would say Sisko is more nurturing as a leader because he kind of shows Worf this is the direction where you need to be. Whereas Riker just is always getting on Worf's case for doing something goofy. And then you take this to fake Tom Paris here. I think he's probably a better leader than Riker because he's looking out for the survival of his team. He's like, we're going through something right here, and if we stick to the plan, we will succeed.
But here's what Riker would have done in this exact situation.
Yeah,
is Riker would have just marched, done what Wesley kind of does at the end, where he would just march in and go, "Hey, I asked my team to do this. It was the wrong thing to do. They were following orders. It's on me." And that's what he does at the end to keep everybody from getting kicked out of the academy.
Yeah,
but he's a young man. He has to learn. He has to learn to do that. I mean, sadly, it loses him a career in Starfleet. Actually,
he would have been a great Maquis operative. It's too bad that he got caught on his first assignment.
Yeah.
By the way, Mr. Ed here was also considered as the Commander Sisko character.
Yeah, I could have seen that. Would have been
They got a thing for bald guys.
Well, what's funny is that I have this in my head that if he was Sisko, they would have had Avery Brooks come on and be Michael Eddington for that storyline.
Oh, that would be good.
Yeah.
Avery Brooks would make a really good Eddington too, because I mean, he's a really erratic, emotional actor.
Yep.
He kind of throws himself into one direction, and then he has these really violent emotional shifts where anger might turn into hysterical laughter, for example.
Yep.
He'd make a great villain.
Yep.
Ultimately, I like where they went with the whole single black dad in space who's also a leader.
Oh, absolutely.
That was, I applaud that even to today.
And it was all Avery Brooks was the guy behind the whole, like, no, we need to really make it look like Sisko is Jake's dad, and I'm gonna kiss this guy and hug on him and stuff.
Yes.
And yeah, you really believe that was a father and son. And I believe this guy's a grieving father. Like I don't know that I would have wanted to watch him and some snivelly little white kid that was like, I'm gonna be the best newspaper guy ever.
All right, here's the first formal presentation. It's video of the cockpit.
I love that it is video. It's got the video lines in it and everything.
I didn't even realize. Do you think they added that in the remaster? Yeah. I don't remember seeing video cockpit.
Actually, no, you're right. Maybe they might have. This does look like something new they did. Because that feels like something that would cost. That whole thing looks like it would cost a lot of money.
That's a lot of CGI right there.
You're right. They may very well have done all that for remaster. If you know, send us an email or a comment at nextgenfirstgenpod@gmail.com. Our mailbox has been empty for a while. We'd like to talk to you.
I remember a model on a grid animation.
Yeah.
Watching this as a kid.
A power coupling exploded in my cockpit. I don't know how, but I managed to activate my escape transport.
All right, there we go. Blackout memory. I don't know how, but I made it.
With the rest of the squadron.
You would think that would kick in if you got knocked out doing something like that you'd just be transported off immediately.
No, sir.
Yeah. Well, I'm surprised it transported him directly to a station and not just, a couple 100 meters or kilometers off the side of the ship, because it seems more risky to beam in at another facility when it's not expected than to just beam out in space and then hit your emergency transponder and people can pick you up. It's kind of like your ejection seat in a Navy fighter flying you all the way back to the mess hall. It's like, wait a minute. That could cause more problems. Oh, here we go. Are you in a diamond slot position?
That was his lie of omission. It was like, yes, technically they were in that position before the crash, but not when the crash happened.
Oh, here we go. Our Admiral, he found the lie. Admiral Satek. That is not a diamond slot position. Bum, bum, bum. What do you do? What do you say? Think quickly. That's one thing I've never been able to do, is think on my feet in situations like this. Not that I get caught in a lie, but sometimes someone will ask me a very direct question and I'm not comfortable if I know this person enough to provide an answer. So I just have to kind of think on my feet, like, okay, what do I say? Da-da, da-da, da-da.
What is your explanation, Mr. Crusher?
It's okay to say you have none and that you'd like to talk to counsel.
Yeah, but they don't have counsel. Which they may not be entitled to it as cadets.
It could be seen more as a disciplinary hearing.
Yeah.
I want to talk to my shop steward. I feel harassed and your behavior erratic towards this inquiry, aka leave me alone, don't talk to me.
The head of house is just Boothby in a long-haired wig named Ruthby.
Ruthby Vader Ginsburg?
Yeah.
Oh.
It's like, no, Ruthby and Boothby aren't the same person. I don't know. I've never seen them together.
Now, do you think they had Will Wheaton on retainer and they said, hey, let's do a Will Wheaton episode, or did they have to reach out to him outside of contract? Because I think his contract...
reach out to him outside of contract, as it says he's a special guest.
Yes, that's true.
Now, does he? I want to say he only does one more episode, which is his goodbye episode, like his official goodbye episode.
Yeah, he runs off with the Traveler during a Maquis shootout in season 6 or 7.
I have not watched that episode in more than 20 years, and I am really excited to watch it again.
It's a good one. It goes back. It really goes back to what Wesley originally started out as. At some point, Wesley had popped off and was really angry that everyone had all these expectations on him and who he should be. And he's trying his best to kind of fit this role or this mold everyone is putting him in. And to see that in the final episode for him, it was nice to see him realize, hey, I don't have to do this. I can just go off and be myself. And then they totally ruin it when he comes back for the wedding of Deanna and Riker
and Will.
Apparently he had a whole Starfleet career too between when he left and that wedding.
Yes, but he also has Traveler stuff going on in the novels too, but we'll talk about that more when we get to Nemesis. What's interesting here is we now learned that like they'll take down all of this stuff Boothby does for like sports tournaments, and like kids will have parties and like destroy the grounds, and Boothby's got to rebuild again.
Oh, yeah. What kind of Starfleet is this? Oh well, after the big Starfleet versus Federation Security Services football game, there was a riot in the stands.
We do know that the collision occurred about 4 seconds after the satellite images were recorded. We still don't know how the ships got into the new formation.
So this is where where Picard figures out what they did with the plasma burst.
Yes. Data and Geordi are just kind of summarizing. We have no idea how they could go from a diamond slot into this other formation. And we've run 53 different tests and they couldn't get there. Now, the reason why this is so important is not because someone got killed. I mean, death is always kind of a big deal, but because it's a forbidden formation. Apparently, everybody knows this formation and it just is not allowed.
Yeah, so the idea is, though, but if they had done it and pulled it off, that obviously, like, whatever discipline that would have been used against them would not have been nearly as bad as, had they killed, them having killed someone.
How cool would it be if they either A, brought in the instructor of the squad, like the sponsor, as a subject matter expert for aerial maneuvers, or to bring in like the equivalent of the Starfleet Blue Angels and have them come in and talk about the technical difficulties of attempting what we're accusing them to do, and kind of go on a lecture like, yeah, when I was in the class at 13, we lost 3 cadets over this very same maneuver, and this is why it's illegal, or something like that. So here we go. Picard is facing Wesley with the ugly truth of doing the starburst maneuver, and we are going to get another well-written Picard speech.
And one of the most famous, the speech that this episode is named after, the first duty. Every Starfleet officer is to the truth. It's funny when you said that about the Blue Angels, because it's like, unless those ships that they're flying in are just for goofing off in, that it kind of takes away from people's idea that Starfleet is a peaceful organization, because it's like, doesn't that mean those are like the X-wings
right
of Starfleet, like the one-man attack ships?
Mm-hmm. Well, they do have fighter squadrons that were mentioned, and of course during the Dominion War, but that was a war thing. They do talk about test pilots, but they don't necessarily mention that these are combat vehicles. I mean, you can have stunt craft without them being combat craft, if
yes.
That makes any sense. Or even we've seen shuttle races too.
Yeah, but the Blue Angels are both stunt and combat craft.
Yes.
Yeah, when you said that, but just remember, as far as war is concerned, the Cardassian War has only been over for 2 years.
Ooh, that's not long at all.
No, when we saw the Cardassians, it was like the war just ended with them, and we need to be like super careful because we just did this treaty.
And it's funny because before that episode, we had no idea that the Federation was at war with anybody, and they're just off on their ship checking stuff out. Oh, by the way, there's a war.
Well, because they're on an exploratory mission, and even when they did get shown to be in the war, it was an extension of a Klingon war, not the Cardassian war, because they didn't quite have the plans for the Cardassians yet. That they had no idea where the Cardassians were going to go.
That story arc for that race really panned out nicely.
Yeah.
We don't get to hear too much about the Romulans. Like, they really flesh out the Cardassians and the Klingons, but the Romulans always seem to be these very distant, evasive, manipulative creatures that we don't really get a chance to know until after their planet exploded and they were all evacuated. Like, we're just learning about them in the Picard series.
Well, there was a lot about them in Enterprise, that's another one that I have not watched.
Ah, yes, that's true. Here we go. To stand up and tell the truth, you don't deserve to wear that uniform. I'm going to make this very simple for you, Crusher. Either you come forward or I will. I've actually used this on people when I catch them on stuff that has to be reported. I'll just like,
Yeah.
you got till the end of your shift to do this.
Yeah.
That's me giving you respect in a really weird way. Like, would you want to have agency, or would you want someone else to make the call for you?
Yeah, I definitely want to know what was going to happen. It's like when you work with kids and they're like, I screwed up, and are you going to tell my mom? And it's like, no, the situation right now does not warrant me telling your mom, but I would never secretly tell your mom something. And all that was the other thing is that, I would never be the one to tell the parent that the kid had done something that they needed to be disciplined for. The parent would come in and I would say, tell your mom what happened today.
I think that guy who walked across the stage in the very opening scene where he said, hey, he's the first guy.
Yeah.
That was a guy, his character is named Nelson.
Mm-hmm.
And Russian, I can't even begin to do this guy's name justice. I lack the ability. ASSAPIOMONWAIT. So I'll have to learn to say that name. But apparently this guy's been around for a long time. He's been in several episodes as just a background person walking around. He's been in an alternate timeline episode. He's been in Times Squared, the Schizoid Man. So he's had some really wide action here in the show. But we're talking not about Nelson, about this episode. So we still have Nick and Mr. Crusher just arguing about what's right.
Yeah, but basically the ultimatum that Nick gives to Wesley, and he messes up really bad here, is because he makes it seem like if Wesley tells what actually happened, he will make the decision about what the punishment for the cadets is.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not on Wesley. That's not on Locarno either.
Gotcha.
It's on who's ever running the tribunal.
Well, here's another question that kind of digs a little deeper. Loyalty.
Right.
Are you loyal to Star Trek? Loyal to Starfleet by telling the truth and ratting out your team? Or are you loyal to the team by lying to Starfleet? It's odd because no matter which way you go, someone's going to see you as the traitor.
Yes.
And I think that if you're going street rules, you're the traitor if you lie to the government. Or, I mean, sorry, if you lie to the team and you rat out to the government. So the man would be Starfleet, and you're telling the man, hey, this is what happened. All of a sudden you're an untouchable. Nobody will talk to you. Nobody will respect you because you ratted out the team.
And that's why it would have been interesting if this had really been Tom Paris, if his dad had been there to kind of influence the story. And Wesley, he's adulty. He doesn't bring up his mom, but he knows that, if he was dead and it was his mom that wanted to know what happened, he would hope that Locarno would speak up.
Yeah.
Now, I would have liked this whole thing to end a little bit differently, where, she's like, hey, it looks suspicious. We can't prove suspicion. Every one of you has a reprimand on your file. She rings her bell, and then Wesley goes, no, I have something to say. She goes, the time to say something was back then. We've already, this is, I've rung my bell. There isn't room to talk anymore about this.
So he could have walked so basically,
Yep.
Are you saying that Picard bluffed?
No, I don't think he bluffed, because Picard, as a starship captain, could have gone in and said, this is what actually happened. And again, she wouldn't be able to do anything. Because that happens all the time. Once the decision is rendered, new evidence really can't be entered into it to change things.
Here we go. Everybody's got a mark on their record.
Fly anymore.
Oh, they're not allowed to fly. I missed that. Yep.
This inquiry is
So what we
So-
get instead is Wesley does this, and he loses all of his academic credits for the year, which is not the worst thing in the world because I think he was at the academy early anyway. I want to say Wheaton was 15 or 16 in this episode, and all of these people are considerably older than him.
We performed a loop.
I think he looks like more around 17 or 18 there.
Attempted a Culver starburst.
Yeah, are you
He's
talking the
born-
character or the actor?
The actor.
The actor? Oh well, you just have
Yeah,
to find out what year.
I want to
he's
say
born.
he's born in 76.
72. So
72.
he's 40. He's 49 right now.
Okay.
We thought we could do anything.
So this is 1992.
So he's 20?
And Josh died.
Yeah.
That doesn't seem right to me because that would mean that because he's a lot younger than 15 in
It wasn't his
the
fault.
first season.
Well, this is season what, 5?
5. Yeah.
Yeah. So he would have been 15 when he started.
He comes off as a lot younger than that. But
Yeah, because he's freaking Wesley Crusher, man.
gotcha.
He's a man baby.
Yeah.
Oh, I just can't stop hating on that poor kid. It's not fair
Yeah.
to him at all. Oh, so yeah, I totally buy your whole argument of they waited until after the proceedings were over to tell the truth, which would have been a huge deal because that means that they're all in contempt of whatever court that is because they didn't follow the rules.
No, it was they wouldn't be in contempt. It would just be she just wouldn't have let him talk.
Hmm.
She would have Picard would have written to her and said, "Hey, here's what actually happened," and everybody would know. But they would have technically, yeah, they would have gotten away with it. But I think this is the best episode of the show that's centered around Wesley.
Yeah.
Where
can see
he
that.
seems like a real person. He doesn't seem like a prodigy. I like the game quite a bit, but you could do the game completely without Wesley.
Uh-huh.
I feel awful.
The game could have been about Geordi.
So
This
apparently-
episode actually needs to be about Wesley.
yeah.
And it's a good Picard episode too, because it shows the relationship that he wants to have with people that are off his ship now.
Well,
Yeah,
Picard
but
he's not socially awkward here like he is in most situations.
No, because he understands the relationship that they have now that he is. He's a cadet at the academy, and Picard is a starship captain. He's not. Wesley's not under his command anymore. And again, that was a special assignment that Wesley had, which Picard pointed out earlier on. He's like, you did some stuff that annoyed me, but I gave you a special assignment, and I was really impressed with you. And I continue to want you to be successful, and you will be. You screwed up, and you did what you had to do afterwards, and you took my advice, which really makes me happy. And so that's
there's the end of the episode. I'm thinking about what you're saying, and I'm reminded of other episodes where this is a frequent thing where the character who is in a position of XYZ responsibility, be it a cadet or a department head, and they're faced with a dilemma where they have to go against the rules to satisfy whatever mission they're on. So Wesley, it's to lie and cover up and get through it. But there's always a moral choice of doing what's right versus what are the rules. And it seems like Picard's really choosy, or maybe the scriptwriters are really choosy when to come in and slap people with that argument. Good example, Riker and Worf, just a few episodes, taking a shuttle down and kidnapping somebody to save them from this lobotomizing operation, but apparently they were too late. Can you imagine the lectures that you would receive knowing that you were a part of that? Yeah,
it'd be pretty intense.
And this is low-hanging fruit, but I would like to see from Picard, if he is a true leader, to call out everybody when they make that decision and have those conversations and see how he walks the line on each issue with each individual. And I know that's way too much to ask of the show writers. That's more like real life. You know, you've got when you're at work and you've got a boss, they're going to handle each person just a little bit differently based on their temperaments, and they're going to let some people slide and they're going to let other people just walk the line. And they can't step out of line, otherwise it's lecture time. But I'd really like to see some more follow through on your job decision and your personal life decision were in direct conflict, and you made the wrong choice. Yeah, well, I like that episode.
I do.
It was a slow one. But it got me talking. It got me thinking. I'm always curious about what's going on with Wesley, and this is not the Wesley that we knew.
No.
When you see him leave the ship, he's got life experience. He's not trying to impress anybody. I think that's the biggest thing right there. Wesley doesn't have that "I've got to impress you" energy. He is just doing his thing for himself to survive on this team through the trial, and I like that. So for a writing point of view, I think it was great. I want to give it a 4 out of 5. When I watched this as a kid, though, I was kind of like, oh my gosh, how could he do this? He was like the perfect kid, and he got caught up in this, and he's lying. And I almost felt like he was the traitor, if that makes any sense.
Well, as Boothby says, Locarno is so charismatic that his team would follow him off a cliff.
Ah, yes.
And Robert Duncan McNeil as Locarno sells that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yes, he gets pissed, but he gets pissed like a young guy who's never been in that position before. If we believe that he's really the going to be the guy that turns into Tom Paris, he'll learn. He needed a Janeway to straighten him out.
Yes. And the only way that Janeway could straighten him out are through non-traditional means. I mean, if they were back in the Alpha Quadrant, it'd just be like, oh, you're discharged again, and now you're somebody else's problem. But because he didn't really have the option to leave the ship, he was there for the long haul, so Janeway kind of had to kick his butt in order to get him in line. So, well, how do you rate this one?
I give it a 5 out of 5.
Okay.
Compare it to something like, another trial episode like The Drumhead or Measure of a Man. I would probably rather watch this than The Drumhead.
Okay.
Because it doesn't hinge on like the judge is crazy or the prosecutor's crazy, which is what I don't like about The Drumhead. Measure of a Man does more for character building on the show, but this is just a good it's a great Picard episode.
Yes.
And it's a what if Wesley were not a prodigy but just a regular human kid episode in a situation that a kid could easily get into at a military academy.
And enough time has passed from him leaving that you forget he saved the ship literally like 5 or 6 times.
Exactly. Nobody's going to be like, nobody says we have to make special exceptions for Wesley Crusher because he saved the universe.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much, everybody. That's a fun episode. We were talking about what we've got coming up next is Cost of Living. It's a Loxana Troy episode. She comes by and messes with everybody's vibe and has a good time doing it. So with that, we'll say have a wonderful day. Music provided by LoFiGirl.com. Artists include Tenno, Daydreaming, BVG and Mondberg, Insomnia, WYS, Snowman. Bcalm and Banks, Because. Episode cover art created by Matthew Kirschner. Podcast logo and main cover art provided by David Clawwitter. Audio engineering done by Sascha Figure.